Strap into your seats and get ready. It's time for the Mortarpod.
Hey everybody, Alex Stephenson and Jake Faas here. Welcome to this week's episode of the Mortarpod. Jake's, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing, dude?
Doing very good. We're going to have a short Mortarpod for you this week. We're just going to be doing the Make-A-Wish segment. And I think what that's going to help, it's going to be a lot shorter than normal, but I'm also going to be able to have better quality uploads for iTunes and stuff like that. So hopefully, audio listeners, you're getting a better experience out of this. So the Make-A-Wish segment has kind of been the most popular segment, and it's just Jake and I sort of brainstorming and coming up with custom magic set ideas. So this week, we did one of my favorite movies. It's Dawn of the Dead, and not the new one, the old school one, back from the 70s. I'm a big George Romero fan. He's a director. He did Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and then later in his career he did a couple more movies that kind of not as good. Did you ever watch Diary or Survival of the Dead? Did I force you to watch those?
Diary is it's like almost, what's the way, a documentary style?
Yeah, and it was like college kids basically got George Romero to do the movie. It was really bad, dude.
It was bad.
Oh.
And I think the thing that was really terrible about it was the college professor in it.
Yeah, with like the English accent.
Yeah, it was like so stereotypical. It couldn't be worse.
Did you watch James Rolfe's review of that movie? Maybe we watched that together. The Angry Video Game Nerd.
Maybe. But I just remember like watching it and critiquing it at the time.
Yeah, it was. The acting was atrocious.
It was really bad.
Like, the thing is about the old school Dawn of the Dead, the one we're about to get into, the acting's not, like, crazy good. It's not insane. But it's like this, they're all prima donnas in the new one, the Diary of the Dead. It's like they all just think they're such good actors. I feel like there wasn't as much pretension with the 70s actors. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were just...
Oh, for sure.
They were going in and they were acting, they were doing their best, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't, but you didn't roll your eyes when you watch it. And that's what Diary of the Dead was. You just are constantly rolling your eyes at like, ugh, please stop talking. It's a lot of that. But the old school Dawn of the Dead, it has pretty much the same story as, the remixed, remastered new one that they did with like Ving Rhames. So the old school one, it's just the world is already overrun with zombies and people are escaping and just trying to survive. And they find a mall and they take it over, kill all the zombies in there and sort of block all the entrances. And it's really good. It was a really cool idea. Raiders eventually come in and sort of, let all the zombies back in and screw everything up. But it was just, it had a lot of social commentary at the time. George Romero really liked the idea of, in a world overrun by zombies, it's people that are killing people still. You know what I mean?
You're right. Yeah.
It was always like people are always going to be at odds with each other, even in the times when they need to unite the most, it's still like people out to kill other people. So kind of dark social commentary, but they're really awesome movies, and zombies are just so much fun. And it's the month of October, so it's Halloween times. I felt like the Make-A-Wish this month should definitely be darker themed, more horror themed. So let's get into them. The zombie mechanic in this is kind of like the zombies that we know is why I made the Z virus mechanic that we'll get to shortly. But I do these slides sort of chronologically still. So First, I'll do Francine the Empathetic. Now, the movie just sort of opens on Francine, and you don't know much about her. She works at a television station, and the television station is just trying to give out information about, you know, where the safety is, because the world's overrun by zombies already. So she costs a white and a blue. She's a 1/3 human, a legendary human. She has vigilance, and then she has tap, remove target attacking or blocking creature from combat, and tap. Francine the Empathetic deals 1 damage to target attacking creature. So once they get to the mall, she has to defend herself. Kind of explains her second mechanic, and then remove target attacking or blocking creature from combat. She has a relationship with the next card. I'm going to spoil, and she was able to pull him from situations throughout the movie that would have endangered him. So that was the idea for the first mechanic. But Stephen Flyboy is the second one. His last name's not Flyboy. It's just everyone calls him Flyboy. So he's a white and a blue for a 2/3 legendary human. And he has 3 activated abilities. He has 1 Stephen Flyboy gains flying until end of turn. Originally, I was going to make a helicopter card. But I just figured he's the only one that really operates the helicopter. He teaches Francine by the end how to operate it, but he's the mastermind of the helicopter, so I figured him having the activated ability would be fine. The second activated ability, I wasn't sure if they still do this one, but for 1, you can add a white or a blue to your mana pool, so he's kind of like a mana fixer for white and blue. And then he has 1 look at the top card of target player's library. I figured that would be like him in the helicopter. He can sort of spy. And he also finds plans and stuff as they're looting the mall. Do they do that filter ability much anymore, Jake? Are you there?
Yeah, I am, but not sure how long I'm going to be here, I guess.
Oh, okay. Well, it looks like we lost you for a little bit. Where did you leave off?
I really only heard like the very beginning before it started getting distorted. So, was it the female character that you were talking about first?
Yeah, so I first talked about Francine, the Empathetic, and she removes attackers or blockers from combat, and she can deal damage to attacking creatures. And she has a relationship with Stephen Flyboy, the second guy. He's his activated ability, for 1 mana, you can add a white or a blue to your mana pool. I was asking, do they do that mechanic much anymore? Sort of the land filter activated ability. I think like Feralite Priest was like an old school one that
Yeah.
did it.
They usually keep it to green. I mean, blue is able to do it for sure, just because it has like a manipulation aspect to it. But usually it's a green thing. But on a legendary creature, it totally works at rare.
Okay. Yeah, I sort of figured he was a little bit of a resource gatherer, and in his helicopter, he's able to fly and sort of spy on other people, which explains the other mechanics. He's buddies with Roger, who I called Roger SWAT Stormer. So Roger, you first are introduced to him sort of raiding an apartment building where the residents of the apartment building have been keeping their injured and dying in the basement, and those people are then turning into zombies and causing all sorts of disgusting mayhem. So Roger and the SWAT team are forced to go there. Roger is a white and a red for a 3/3 haste human soldier creature, and he has tap, deal 1 damage to target creature. If that creature is a zombie creature, destroy it instead. And then his flavor text is, "We got this, man. We got this by the ass." And that's, of course, when he's going crazy. He's sort of lost his mind a little bit, unfortunately. That's also why I gave him haste, because of Roger's haste, he unfortunately perishes at the mall. But 2 mana, 3/3, already strong. Give him haste, very strong, and he can also ping. So he's definitely worthy of mythic legend. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I had to let my cat in.
Oh, that's cool. I understand.
Yeah, I think a 2-color creature that's legendary as a 3/3 and those colors in particular it's pretty fine. I don't really see a problem with it per se.
Yeah. Do you think you could still, if there was a legend like this, 2 mana 3/3 haste, do you think you would still run 4 in a deck?
Well, it would definitely be a target. So I'd probably at least run three, you
Yeah.
know.
See, the legendary always kind of cheap legendary creatures. It's always difficult. Like Thalia too. I never played Thalia, but
hmm
always felt like it was tough to jam 4 of them in a deck.
I think you play four of her in Legacy at least, so
Yeah. I
you know.
guess she's pretty important for that deck though. Yeah. Um, so anyway, after Roger, they assault the apartment complex. One of his men goes crazy and just starts shooting residents, and Roger jumps on him to try and chill him out. But Peter, the next guy, Peter, Stoic Leader, he eventually becomes buddies with Roger, but he saves Roger's life because Roger's buddy's kind of going crazy. So Peter has to put him down, puts down Roger's buddy. But Peter is a red and 2 white for a 3/4 vigilance human soldier. He's a mythic as well. Whenever another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Peter, Stoic Leader. And he has the tap, deal 1 damage to target creature. If that creature is a zombie creature, destroy it instead. So these 4 are the main protagonists of the story. And they're really, they were, they were a really cool crew because there wasn't that much turmoil within them. They sort of found peace. After Roger died, especially, it sort of kind of unites the remaining 3.
hmm
And eventually the greed gets the best of Steven. Steven gets too mad when the raiders come to destroy the place. And he starts firing at them, and they corner him and get him, and he gets zombified. But um, I mean, that mall, when they block it off, it really is cool. It's really awesome what they get. There's a short period montage in the movie where they're sort of showing them enjoying the spoils of, like, a fully locked off, cleaned up mall, and it would be kind of cool for a while.
hmm
I think the mall they had, it had like grocery stores and stuff like in it too, so canned goods.
That is kind of strange. Like you never think of a mall nowadays having that sort of stuff in it.
Yeah, I'm not sure the mall actually did too in real life. I think they just sort of, modified a mall to make it seem like it had a grocery store or something like
Right.
that. And the mall is famous nowadays. It's also the next card. The mall is definitely famous nowadays for being the site of, where they filmed Dawn of the Dead. And they have their little zombie walks there every Halloween, which is kind of cool. But the next card is Monroeville Mall. So this is the mall that they eventually take refuge in. Stephen Flyboy, like I said, has a helicopter. He was a newscaster. So he transports the full crew, and they sort of hightail it, steal a helicopter from the station, and look for some shelter. So they eventually make their way to a mall. They land on top of it. And that's when Peter has the idea that maybe they just want to hole up there. Maybe there's a way that they can stay at the mall and be safe. So the Monroeville Mall is a legendary land. It taps for a colorless. It also has a white and tap, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to target human creature this turn. And then 2 and a black, tap. Each player puts a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield tapped under his or her control. That would make for a really fun commander card. So I like that you sort of altered it to each player puts a zombie out.
No, I just felt like that's more indicative of an actual zombie infestation too. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that there would just be overwhelming numbers, not like as one-sided as.
No,
And not.
it's perfect because there's a part in the movie where I wanted the duality of the card where it's good if you're the human deck or it's good if you're the zombie deck. But what was cool was there's a question in the movie when they first get to the mall. They see all the zombies sort of wandering around and being on the escalators and stuff. And I remember, I think Francine asked the question, why do they come here? And then I think Steven answers a memory of their life. You know, he's sort of just speculating. So I
Hmm.
thought that was kind of cool. It's kind of drawing the zombies to the battlefield because the mall's there, but it's also, you know, protecting the humans at the same time. So eventually, after they fight off some of the zombies, which here's the next card, Infectious Hari Krishna. So yes, there is a Hari Krishna in the movie, and a zombified one at that. So Infectious Hari Krishna is a 1 and 2 black, 1/3 zombie creature, and it has a mechanic called Z Virus. So Z Virus is whenever this creature deals combat damage to another non-zombie creature, exile that creature at the beginning of the end step. If that creature is exiled this way, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield tapped under your control. So maybe a little bit confusing, but that is exactly what, you know, zombies have done in the history of the modern zombie. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It kind of feels like, I don't know, what the zombies in Walking Dead have done, Dawn of the Dead, like all of the zombie movies from the last 50 years. That's sort of the zombie mechanic. It's kind of interesting that they never brought it to the magic world, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they've definitely tried. Like what Liliana's Reaver has like a pseudo zombie generating ability, you know.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So they've tried to bring it out, but I think in this way it is just really difficult to make it work. But I think that that's like the fairest way to do it, where it's a later trigger, happens at the end of the turn instead of at end of combat, which is the original way.
Hmm.
And you know, your opponent gets a chance to get rid of it, their own creature beforehand too. So I feel like there is a way to make it work. I'm surprised that they haven't like done this at least on one card at rare, you know, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you had some concerns that maybe this mechanic would be too strong, but it's the way it's designed now. It's similar to Death Touch, but the Death Touch creature has to survive in order for it to really be Death Touch. You know,
Hmm.
and you
Yeah.
get some additional perks out of it. So it's kind of like a little bit more difficult to use Death Touch, but I mean, you might be right. There might be something to it being possibly or not too strong in the way in the cards that I've put it on, but I think potentially it kind of maybe limits design space a little bit because it's so much wording, you know, and
Yeah.
it's kind of a little bit of a complex mechanic. But uh, next we have the Pestilent Nurse. So the Infectious Hari Krishna was uncommon. The Pestilent Nurse is a common. It's 4 and a black, 2/5 zombie creature. It also has Z virus, and it can't block. So it can basically just keep attacking in, and if it bites, it's hard to kill unless they multi-block, and um, you know, still can possibly exile something. The Pestilent Nurse from this movie, I should note, it's kind of funny. A lot of people considered her like an overactor zombie. So there was on the like Dawn of the Dead, one of the big fan sites, there was a big thing just making fun of her for basically overacting. You had a small role. Give it a rest, miss. You're just a zombie.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I felt like that's kind of how that's how you would make a creature with Z virus. It probably has low power, you know, because it's kind of a pseudo death touch ability, so you have to treat it the same way. You don't see a lot of death touch creatures with high power, do you?
No, and it's because it just doesn't make a lot of sense. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Death Touch Trample makes sense when you got high power,
Yeah.
but yeah, just Death Touch by itself on it, like Grave Titan. You know, like a 6/6 Death Touch isn't really as impressive, except for the fact that Grave Titan just pooped out an army.
Yeah. That
You
really
know,
was it. Was it 2 at a time, too? Is that right?
yeah, it was
Jeez.
2 zombies each time.
Yeah, and he entered with him. I love that card. What a
I
great
know that
card.
card was amazing.
That was a blue-black control finisher, too, which was awesome.
Yeah, all the Titans were really great. Obviously, Primeval takes the cake, but
Yeah.
that was a really good cycle. I'm glad it's out of like standard, but that was a crazy good cycle.
Yeah. I'm kind of saddened about Primeval. I just feel like it should be different because I feel like Primeval overshadowed the other ones ultimately.
Yeah, I think that if it was basic lands, it wouldn't have been a problem at all.
No, it really wouldn't have been.
Just and maybe if it was only searching up one non-basic at a time,
That would have been much better too. It really was
yeah,
two
because
non-basics.
you would have still gotten the effect, like you would have gotten it twice, so you most of the time at least.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. It was crazy. It was like that card was like it felt so busted. What was more annoying than them pulling out an Ink Moth and a Kessig Wolfrun?
Yeah, and actually, now that I think about it, you kind of feel like there was meant to be some sort of like uniform thing with the numbers there, except that Sun Titan and Inferno Titan both did 3,
Mm-hmm.
but Frost, Primeval, and Grave all did 2.
Yeah, that is weird. So there wasn't any number consistency. I wonder what that's all about. That is strange.
Yeah. But whatever. That's in the past now.
I guess 3 zombies feels like too much, and then
yeah, and 2 damage doesn't seem like enough attached to a 6/6.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the next card. It's Motorcycle Raider. So eventually they've gotten all the zombies out of the mall. They're living, as fine a life as you can, cooped up in a mall in a post-apocalypse. But eventually raiders set their sights on it, and they try and sneak in. But Peter is definitely ultimately onto their game, so he doesn't answer, and the raiders get pissed. So there's a bunch of them, probably like 30 to 50 of them. Even though Steven says a dozen, it's like way more than a dozen.
Yeah.
And they knock all the trucks out of the way because the crew, the original, the protagonist had set up trucks in front of all of the entrances, so the zombies couldn't get leverage to break those doors down. It was kind of an ingenious idea because it
really is smart.
Yeah, because the problem was they had the glass doors, but if enough zombies piled on top of each other, got behind each other, they could just bust through. So placing the truck
would just shatter.
Made it so they couldn't get any momentum, so they could never break in. But the raiders moved the truck because they want the loot of the mall, of course. So Motorcycle Raider, I just made a generic one first. It's 2 black. It's a human rogue. It's uncommon, and it's 2/1 with the ability called Loot. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, add 2 colorless to your mana pool at the beginning of your next post-combat main phase. And the flavor text is, "Come on, man. This is a professional army. Looks like they've been surviving on the road all through this thing." And that's Peter to Steven commenting when they're using some binoculars on them.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you think about the loot mechanic? Does it work?
I think it's okay. I wanted to kind of figure out a way to change it just a little, like maybe to give you colored mana, but like if you could get 1 colored mana of any type, something like that, it'd be cool. But I think in the end that's fine, the 2 colorless, because that lets you play artifacts, which would be something you would loot,
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Stuff like that.
And I like that it ramps you too. It's a pretty significant ramp. With Motorcycle Raider, if it gets in, you can ramp to 5 on turn 3.
Yeah.
Which is pretty big.
Yeah, it is.
And it kind of, this just happened by chance, but it actually kind of works well with raid, the raid mechanic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You attack, you deal damage, you loot, you raid. So your raid guy's cheaper, gets his bonus.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like how that works.
Yeah, that is cool.
Finally, we have Blades the Brutal, and this is played by Tom Savini in the movie. And if you don't know who Tom Savini is, he's an awesome actor, but he's the original makeup man for George Romero. He did all the makeup work in Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Creep Show. He did some makeup work in that, and he's just super talented guy. You may recognize him from Dusk Till Dawn. He played essentially the same character in that movie that he did in this, which is kind of funny. But he had the dick gun in From Dusk Till Dawn. Do you remember that? The dick gun,
right.
And the two cartridges for like is it the two? Is it cartridges that hold the bullets? Whatever they were his balls, and then he had like it was just. You have to look up a picture of it. Just look up From Dusk Till Dawn dick gun, and I'm sure I'm sure
I'm
it's
sure
the
it'll come
first one
up.
on there. But Blades the Brutal is 1 a black and a green for a 4/3 human rogue creature. He also has loot and he has first strike. And then his flavor text is, what do you think? Should we get him now or tonight? And the answer is tonight. So Blades the Brutal, cool character in the movie, kind of like the boss mob that Peter eventually kills. But 4/3 first strike with loot. He's pretty powerful. Kind of what you expect from a rock creature. He honestly could have been. He probably could have been a 4/4, but maybe that's too good. But I feel like he could have been at legendary.
Yeah. Well, with first strike too, actually. I mean, I feel like 4/3 is probably a little safer. He also has another ability. I don't know. I feel like that's a fine power toughness for him.
Yeah, they're getting crazy nowadays, man. Khans of
Yeah, that's
Tarkar's
true.
got what, the 3 mana 4/4 mythics that are they're 3 color, I guess, in their defense, but they've got some good abilities too, definitely. That one like the Teamer shard. I'm not
The
sure if it's a
Teamer,
rare or
which one?
mythic, but it's a 3 mana 4/4 and it has the 3 different activated abilities. It can get
Oh,
haste,
yeah.
you
It's
can
like an
pump it.
ogre or something.
You can get haste, you can pump it, and it's got one more, but I forget what it was. So that's like, that guy's crazy. So this guy, he could have been pumped a little bit. I'm not even sure. Is that card legendary? I don't even think that guy's a legend.
No, the ogre isn't.
Jeez. So yeah, they're not afraid to do non-legendary 3 mana 4/4s. Maybe I shouldn't be afraid to do 3 mana 4/4s with double abilities either. You had kind of mentioned that I wanted to stick more green in these sets, and that's true. That's kind of why I made Blades green. I guess rogue creatures can be green too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Actually,
I
are
think
rogues
that
in all colors, or are they just like non-white pretty much?
I think you can even have a white rogue, actually. It's not out of line. It just depends on what like creature type is totally dependent on what the set will allow,
Mm-hmm.
like what the setting allows. So I think that like he's probably best as black green because he has ambition, like it's not just about like a strict force of nature type effect.
I see.
Like
Okay.
he's brutal and savage too, but like the fact that he wants something more than what he has, is a very black thing.
Yeah, totally. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I like these little descriptions of how the colors come together. Like the descriptions, like for the
Yeah.
rock colors, because that's always been kind of I've always liked that color combination, black green.
Yeah, it actually, as far as enemy colors go, it's one of those that makes the most sense, honestly,
Yeah,
like black and green is almost like just a survival of the fittest thing in general.
yeah. I like you get the removal and the big creatures, so you get really the best value because you get like the
Yeah.
best removal, you get the best creatures, and that's kind of how they've always mashed those cards up, like pernicious deeds and stuff like
hmm
that. Kind of a really old school, powerful effect from that color combination. So that's going to be it for this week. We're cutting it short, cutting the Mortarpods short, but I hope you enjoy our custom Magic sets. We're going to have another one for you next week. And Jake, I'll have to go back and forth with you, and we'll figure this last one out for Halloween. So
Yeah, for sure.
thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Later.